So on this Mother's Day morning, we gather together with mixed emotions, gratitude and grief, love and loss. Some of us celebrate mothers who are still with us, and some of us only have the memories of what those voices sounded like. Voices that we would give anything to hear one more time. And then still for some of us, our stories are very complicated. But wherever we find ourselves this morning, we all had mothers. And there is a truth that is deep. And that is that a mother, at her best, desires more for her children than simply physical success. She desires for them to become someone. In this chapter of Acts, we find Paul, and he's in Athens, and he's surrounded by a group of very religious people. People who deeply seek the truth. People who deeply desire to serve God. They have altars to all the different gods. And if you know the Greeks, they had gods for everything. And even they had an altar to an unknown God, just in case they forgot somebody. They really wanted to serve God with their whole heart and being. But Paul comes to them and he says, you're missing the mark. He says, God is not contained in temples, in churches, in statuary, in altars. God is not contained in these things because God is the container. The universe is not separate from God, but it exists in God. God is the source of all that is, the foundation, the ground of all being. As Paul says, it's in God that we live and move and breathe and have our being in God. Therefore, Paul teaches us, what can we give God? God doesn't need anything within our temporal reality. God doesn't need to be served as if God needs something. God created all that there is. So what does God want from us? I think we all know the answer to that. God wants our heart, our love, our inner being. God, as you've heard me say so many times, identifies as love. And God calls us into that love. Jesus, who we understand as God incarnate, teaches us what's most important, to love God and to love one another. The purpose of life, then, is not merely to obey the laws, but to become compassionate, to become courageous, to become humble, to become wise and capable of giving love and receiving love. The deepest question in our lives is not what have you achieved, but who are you becoming in this life that God has given you. Today we honor those mothers and those caretakers who have not only given us life, but have shaped us. I would like to give you a quick snapshot of two moms. One is the mother of Fred Rogers, and two, the mother of Mohandas Gandhi. Fred Rogers' mother's name was Nancy McFeely Rogers. Yeah, I got a chuckle out of that too. Mr. McFeely, Mr. McFeely. One of the most powerful lessons that she taught her young son happened when they were watching TV at night. When Fred would see troubling images on the TV, his mom, Nancy, would say, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are willing to help." She didn't have Fred deny suffering, but she taught him to notice that compassion and courage appear alongside of it. Fred was shy, and he was gentle, and he was often lonely as a boy. But his mom, rather than pushing him to become tougher or more competitive. Rather than doing that, she nurtured kindness, music, reflection, and emotional honesty. She treated sensitivity not as a weakness, but as a strength. Again and again, Nancy taught her son that character matters more than status, that success without kindness, success without care for the other is incomplete. Over time, this formation became visible in the man who the world has come to know through Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. His careful listening, his gentleness, his calm presence, his deep respect and recognition for the dignity of others. You know, people often speak of Fred Rogers as being born kind, but those who know him say that he has to practice kindness every day, a habit shaped early in his life by his mom. I believe that this is one of the holiest callings of parenthood. Not merely raising successful children, but shaping them into human beings who know how to love, who know how to tell the truth. Human beings who show courage, who can think beyond their own well-being. Human beings who become fully alive to God and to one another. This is what moms at their best do. Mohandas Gandhi speaks of his mom reverently in his autobiography. Her name was Putalibai. Putalibai. And he describes her as disciplined, as prayerful, as compassionate, and as deeply self-controlled. Putalibai shaped Mohandas not through formal instruction, but through the steady, daily witness of her life. Mohandas saw his mom practice prayer. She saw her practice fasting and other acts of reverence. And he saw her do this with remarkable seriousness, even when it was difficult, even when she was sick. And he learned from her that character is formed through discipline, and that truth matters all the time, even in the littlest things. Putalibai's compassion and her reverence for life influenced Gandhi's lifelong decision toward nonviolence, not only as a political structure, but as the way he interacted with all people, even his opponents. Gandhi became one of the most influential men on the world stage. And yet, throughout his life, we see the values instilled by his mom remaining. He chose to live simply when he could have lived abundantly. He chose to wear homespun clothing instead of the fancy British clothing that was available to him. He chose to clean the latrines himself. And he chose to identify with ordinary people and not the social elites. These stories of these moms relate to our passage this morning because they show us how a mother's love, like God's, is not satisfied with just the achievement in the temporal world, but seeks the development of character, of conscience, of the inner life. Moms remind us that the most important work isn't necessarily outside, it's inside. So today, on this Mother's Day, we give thanks for not only that mothers have brought us life, and our caretakers as well, but we give thanks for who they have helped us become. We give thanks for the countless unseen acts of love that shaped our lives. We give thanks for the encouragement they offered at just the right time. We give thanks for the sacrifices that no one noticed. We give thanks for the values that they lived and showed us and taught us again and again and again and again until they became our own. We give thanks for those who taught us by word and by deed that a meaningful life is not measured only by success, but also by the capacity to love. For in the end, this is the sacred act, the sacred work of a lifetime. Amen.